Hey, Mr. Patterson here, taking a look at the first section in Chapter 11 of the core book for IB Math AASL. We're going to take a look at errors in sampling here. So we're continuing our topic of conversation dealing with statistics, but kind of getting a little bit away from probability and talking a little bit more about how we collect data in order to analyze it. So lots of vocab here, so make sure that you guys are getting down these important vocabulary words here and make sure you understand them and can differentiate between them. So it starts off here talking about a census. We're all pretty comfortable with the census there. That's just basically getting all of the information about a particular population. The 2020 census, for instance, is being collected right now. It's collected every 10 years by the government, and it tries to get information about who's living in each house, and therefore trying to make sure that the population is representative or represented equally or proportionally as they should be in the government, and making sure that financial assistance is appropriately measured there. Um, but a census could be anything. I can get a census of the entire IB Math AASL class, which is only a handful of people there. Um, but a population could be anything is the general idea. Generally speaking, population data is hard to come by when populations are relatively large. So what we do instead is we get a sample of the population, and we want to make sure that that sample is well chosen. Well chosen means that it's representative of the population there. And as long as we have a representative sample, then that sample could tell us a lot about the population. All right. But inevitably, sometimes things go wrong, and it's important to make sure we understand what those things are that go wrong and how they can be accounted for. So there's a whole bunch of different kinds of error or bias that we refer to. We could have sampling error, measurement error, coverage error, and non-response error. And we're going to break down each one of those in the next couple slides to make sure we can identify them and, like I said, hopefully limit their effect on our sample. It says sampling error occurs when a characteristic of a sample differs from that of the whole population. This error is random and will occur even for samples that are well chosen. So the general idea here is that if I'm trying to take a sample to try to learn what the mean height of all Freehold Township High School students is, my sample mean is going to vary from sample to sample. In one sample, it might be 5'2", another sample might be 5'7", another sample might be 5'8". Depending on how large my sample size is, I could have quite a bit of variability in my sample. Now that sampling error, like it says, it can't be accounted for, it just happens. But we can limit its effect by increasing the sample size. Larger sample sizes will lead to smaller sampling errors. Measurement error. Measurement error refers to the inaccuracies in measurements at the data collection stage. For example, when we record a person's height to the nearest centimeter, the recorded height is slightly different from the person's exact height. So if we round to the nearest centimeter as opposed to the nearest tenth of a centimeter or hundredth of a centimeter, we're losing some accuracy there, and that's going to affect our results. If we're weighing things and we round to the nearest pound, the nearest kilogram, whatever, we're losing accuracy. That's measurement error. Wording errors. So wording error can occur in a couple of different ways. It can occur if we just kind of give one side of the argument. So it says here, do you support the dangerous practice of cycling without a helmet? So by including the word dangerous, they're making the person who's responding to the question think a certain way about this particular practice, and therefore they're not giving an objective question. All right. So how can we avoid that? We can avoid this by making sure questions are worded clearly with a neutral tone. All right. We also want to make sure that the language used in the questions is not too technical for the person who might not have as much understanding about what's happening in that particular question. Coverage error. Coverage error occurs when a sample does not truly reflect the population we're trying to get information about. So how can we do that? Well, we want to make sure that we have a representative sample. So we take a look at the whole population, and if we have 20% of the population for a particular area, for a particular population, is over the age of 50, we want to make sure that our sample has about 50% of people, 20% of people who are over the age of 50. If our population has 15% Hispanics, we want to make sure that about 15% of our sample is made up of Hispanics to make sure that we're representative there. If we don't, then we're going to be having some bias there, because what is it about those groups that are underrepresented or overrepresented that are affecting the way people respond to a particular scenario? Non-response errors. So sometimes we try to get people to respond to be part of the study, and they just don't, right? So if we're looking at the 2020 census, for instance, I know that's a census, not a sample, but we're trying to get everybody to participate. A lot of times people just don't send back the postcard, or they don't respond to the prompt online that they're asked to do. And in those particular situations, again, what is it about those people who aren't participating that we're not accounting for here? Now, non-response errors can be improved a little bit by making sure that we follow up with those particular people, maybe by calling them, maybe by emailing them and coming to their door and knocking to make sure that we get as much information as we can from our sample there. But we want to limit that non-response error as much as possible. That's it. Just going through some vocabulary here for this lesson here. Take a look at page 283. You guys are going to work on numbers 1 through 8, and basically you're going to go through that vocabulary and identify what type of error is occurring there. Hope you guys are well. Talk to you soon.